Joining. Okay, so we don't have a ton of time here, and usually I would let a couple minutes before we just get right into things. But since I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping and want to get right into all the content and questions I want to ask for Elena, so let's get started with that. So first couple things are just a quick agenda for the whole hour that we have here. So the first half an hour is going to be myself and Elena doing a fireside chat. I'm going to ask her all about Lovable, AI native products, PLG, all the things that Elena is an expert at. The question that we get asked the most is, will it be recorded? And yes, it's being recorded right now, and we typically will share the recordings within 24 hours. And then for folks who can stick around, I'm going to try my best to take what we talk about in the conversation and apply it to a live common room demo. So hopefully the demo gods are with me. Yeah, with that, let's just get right into questions. So Elena, thanks so much for joining us. And I think everyone here knows who you are, and that's a lot of the reason why people tuned in. And so last we talked, you were last we talked in person, you were like moving on to Dropbox, and then now you've joined Lovable. It's been quite some time, and I just wanted to get like a quick catch up of like, how's Elena? What's been going on the last couple of years, and like why did you join Lovable?
Yeah, so I left Dropbox earlier this year, and I was actually thinking about taking a nice year off. I had a lot of vacations planned, a lot of time spent with my family, and then boom, like from start to finish of when I started talking to Lovable, it was like been 3 weeks, and I had signed contract, and off I go back into a full-time role. So it's been very unexpected for me as well because I was semi tinkering with an idea of maybe retiring, like just like really stepping back out of the full-time operator roles. But Lovable, there's just like sometimes you come across a company that is so special and something feels so different and the team is so incredible. And the opportunity here is just something that I could not pass up against because at Lovable, what I'm doing right now is fairly standard marketing and growth work for Lovable itself, but that's actually not the future and that's not the vision and that's not something that I'm hoping to be doing next year because Lovable presents an ability to actually create apps on Lovable, and I can codify some of the growth best practices on Lovable to be able to grow the apps that are built on Lovable, not necessarily growing Lovable itself, where it's just going to be like a byproduct of growth. So my goal is for Lovable is actually create an Elena agent for the
Oh,
apps that are built on Lovable, but then we'll go and not only codify, as I said, go to growth best practices, but help those apps reach the best potential as fast as possible. So I'm very excited about to do that, to just up level the entire growth field because it's a little bit annoying and tiring how much we're still stuck on pricing page optimizations, homepage optimizations, invite flows. Let's have that all come out of the box in this new wave of new apps that are being built with AI.
yeah. I feel like I would love to just like I feel like this is gonna take sound braggadocious about myself, but it's like I would love to take my brain and then like put it in an AI and then just have AI do all the things. And it sounds like you're trying to make a version of yourself via Lovable. So that sounds very interesting and very compelling to me, actually.
Yes, so it's a step two. Step one right now, we need to make sure that Lovable is actually usable, activation is right,
Right.
monetization is right, all of our acquisition is firing on all cylinders. But yes, that's my step two, which really got me excited.
Awesome. Okay. So we are the topic that we at hand here is kind of like how AI native products or AI native go-to-market teams can navigate this kind of new space. As I was thinking about it myself, I was like, okay, this feels very much like product led to me or PLG to me, but also with like a twist where there's different mechanics and different like things at play, whether it's like monetization or like user adoption or like grokability or aha moment. So I know your background is like really square within the PLG space. But so I wonder if you could kind of like give the audience a feel for like what's different about it, or maybe what's the same, and what's the differences that you've noticed or observed in your first 2 months plus.
Yeah, so Lovable, for those of you that, by the way, that don't know Lovable, Lovable just helps you build any app just by chatting with AI. So think about chatting with ChatGPT, but instead of just getting some summaries and answers, it actually builds an application for you, whether it's just a web page or whether it's a full-blown app with authentication and logged in, logged out experience, whatever your heart desires. So in terms of Lovable's go-to-market motion right now, it's almost purely PLG. So I think we're just crossed $70 million dollars in ARR like this week or next week. It's
Crazy,
like
yeah, crazy.
it's growing really quickly. But the piece here is that all of it is self-serve. So this growth has been accomplished by really creating an incredible self-serve experiences. So the team already from the beginning, and there's only 35 people in the company too, so it's very, very small. But they all have that experience of, hey, we need to create these product flows and user flows that are so self-serve and that's so intuitive and using AI to do that. So yes, there's still very much fundamental PLG blocks of how do you activate correctly, how do you monetize correctly, how do you retain, how do you apply acquisition, and what are your growth loops. But the pieces here that feel slightly different are one, the velocity with which we can iterate. I'm used to like a lot of ideas that I'd want to do, like it would take a week, 2 weeks, a month, sometimes like, oh, our infrastructure is so bad, it will take a year. And it's just like crushes the soul of like the things that you want to release to
Hmm.
the customers and you're just not able to do it because of the engineering capacity. The interesting thing with here with AI native company, like everything that my heart desires is like a week away if I so wish. It's just like a matter of prioritization just because we have fewer engineering resources. But it's super fascinating just to see the speed at which everything can be developed and how much teams internally utilize AI as a first go-to to create something. So we have designers, but everybody creates their own prototypes on Lovable that then is shared and received feedback on before it goes into development. A lot of our own experiences are built on Lovable. So it's not like anytime that we think, okay, let's create some sort of marketplace for shipped apps on Lovable. No, it doesn't even go to engineering. It's just like we just created, somebody creates it on Lovable and off we go. So a lot of it is self-serve internally, which feels very new. And a lot of companies should be adopting this because this really accelerates the path. But then the engineering team is firing on so many more, on such a higher, much velocity, which is super fascinating as well. But then also there's like different aspects of how users are interacting with the experience and how much of it can be truly not have to be over engineered, so to speak, or overthought, because you can just almost like put in the prompt and let customer just interact with the prompt as opposed to come up with a complex user flow journey that then you need to optimize every step of the way. So like UI is collapsing too, instead of having a billion, bazillion options that you like need to surface and create awareness of, to just, hey, it can be conversational. And then you just need to optimize the experience with that conversation, not necessarily a big UI and UX challenge that would be, as a comparison, something that we would do before.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to get into that actually. It's a great segue. So it sounds like it has a lot of horizontal use cases potentially. It's like anything you can
Yes.
imagine, it can code, right? And then so finding your and I feel like well, 70 million in ARR or whatever you're getting at that speed is like you probably have a ton of people signing up. And so one question I hear a lot about is for these like, high velocity growth AI companies is, okay, how do you find signal in the noise of your ICP and like what their use cases are? And so like I feel like you probably get so much volume. Like how do you extract like what part of that volume is your actual ICP that you would want to retain?
Yeah, so there's a both like tops down and the bottoms up, and then you kind of need to meet in the middle. So I'll talk about the tops down, which is what Lovable started with. They had a vision and mission to enable more entrepreneurs to succeed with the idea that they had. And so that primary use case was that solopreneur building an app and making a business out of it, versus something that they felt unable to do before because they didn't have the technical background to do it. But then there was like muddiness, like, oh, well, what about engineers? Is the technical persona our use case? And what about enterprises or like B2B, like in companies and employees? Is that our focus? And actually, interestingly enough, at the beginning, they're like, solopreneurs is where we're going to go. When I joined, I'm like looking at all of the demand coming in that is actually like customer who is using it. There's so many employees that are engineering adjacent that are using
Mhm.
us inside the companies. And I'm like, whoa, 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 we need to pull them into our core ICP as well, because they also kind of act like solopreneurs just inside the company. They want to have more productivity because they're annoyed of the manual tasks or the wait lines on the engineering resources. So they're
Mhm.
almost creating their own little products, but just inside the company. So like it's internal tooling, it's automation, it's the prototyping. And we pulled that in really quickly into our core use case. So we still have our solopreneur that is attached to our vision of redefining entrepreneurship that is more long-term. But the market pool right now is actually happening from employees inside the companies. And then we very clearly said engineering is our adjacent use case, and it's not going to be our ICP because we have tools like Cursor and Vercel v0 that are really going heavily after engineering use case. And that
Mhm.
makes sense. And we're like, we don't want to compete directly with them. We want to play nicely with engineering persona, and we want to make sure that we're not rejected by them. Therefore, it's not like we don't mention them, but they're our adjacent persona, do no harm to them. But we really want to focus on that non-technical user,
Mhm.
product manager, finance, ops, HR
Marketing.
within the marketing. Absolutely, yeah. Marketing is our huge persona within our user base, and then that solopreneur. And the interesting part, interestingly enough, is a lot of people that are employees right now in the companies. They want they. That's not like their ultimate goal. They want to start their own companies. They have amazing ideas. So I'm actually thinking about this as a loop. If we get into the companies and if employees get to use
Ah,
Lovable and understand what possibly can be built with it, it actually will create a new wave of entrepreneurship, which those people will leave the companies and become solopreneurs
yeah.
or entrepreneurs on the side.
Yeah, so someone builds an app and they're like, "Wow, I didn't even know this was possible." And I'm
Exactly.
going to go start my own company and then like be the entrepreneur profile. They're going to like switch from internal to
Yeah.
entrepreneur essentially.
And I'm not expecting like the mass exodus of full-time positions, but I do think a lot more people can have their hobby projects or side projects that are actually being a lot more productive and just finding additional passions to life outside of just your full-time grind that you're in.
Yeah. I did want to ask a follow-up question on finding that insight of like, oh, it's not just entrepreneurs, it's these internal employees that are
Yeah,
entrepreneurial like. How did you spot that? Were you looking at data? Were you looking at like user activity like by watching what screens or whatever they're building? Were you interviewing people? Like how did you identify that that was your ICP or like part of your ICP?
part of our ICP. Yeah. So the solopreneur was always there. Like that was non-movable. That is going to be our ICP. So it was just a question of do we pull in this use case too to be a part of our ICP. So it was threefold. It was one, we just saw a bunch of social mentions of like what people are building and they were excited about it. And like, wow, these people are building something that they actually want to talk about publicly, which means that it's really helped them or they found that this was very innovative. And that was a lot of marketers and product managers actually that were like talking
Hmm.
about it, of what they've built for their companies. Like I was just talking to some uh, it's just like it's mind-boggling of like the from the very little tasks to like all the way to production apps that they're building inside these companies. But then on top of it, we are looking at our data. So we have a lot of public projects, or we look at the workspaces and like do AI scrape of like the categories of where people are
Mm.
building. And we saw a lot of internal tooling and a lot of automation and a lot of prototyping outside of just like a B2C app or B2B app. So that was a really big sign that it's happening, whether we want it or not, it's happening and it's making up a very large chunk of our data. And then the third signal, we started getting a ton of enterprise outreach to us saying, hey, we have already a bunch of employees using you. We need to get through
Mm.
security and compliance, and we need to close a deal with you in order to enable either more people or to make sure that these people are not breaking our protocols to do it. So across all three, we're like, whoa, like we can't like miss this chunk of the pie, especially since it's pulling us so heavily in. So I would say that it was an adjacent use case that company has said that like that the employee or team player that company said they're not going to focus on at the beginning of the year, that by come May time was like, okay, this is part of our ICP. Enterprise is our focus as well, and off we go.
Mhm. And if I could ask you a rapid fire question, if you could pick just one internal use case or entrepreneur, what would you pick?
So I think it's a short-term versus long-term question for me. I
Hmm.
think on the short term, I would love to enable more employees to just not be as frustrated in their jobs and be able to build the little tool sets that they need in order to be more productive and be in charge of their work, so to speak, a lot more without as many dependencies. So to me, that is the short-term goal, but the long-term goal is very much enabling that next wave entrepreneurship, especially because we're seeing so many kids getting into Lovable. We have 11, 12-year-olds that are starting to build apps, and it's fascinating. Like those are the future entrepreneurs, but I think that's going to take a little bit time to bake out, just because it's really difficult to finish an app still at Lovable all the way to the end,
Hmm.
where it's functioning and it's monetizing. A lot of people get there, but we also need to provide a lot more help to the market to get to that point, which we will, working very hard on that. But that is more of an aspirational still use case that is not extremely widely adopted. Internal use case is very widely adopted right
Yeah.
now.
To get there right now, it sounds like, and there was a question in the chat that was like, you're prototyping, you're building this thing that to enable yourself, and then you're kind of handing it off to DevOps or your engineering team to kind of like take it across the finish line if you want to productionize it. Is that kind of how the flow is working that you've seen from internal to production, I guess?
Yes and no. So there's a couple of ways this is happening. If it's an internal use case, a lot of times it's an end-to-end. So they build some sort of tool. So for example, I need to standardize marketing campaign names because they're all over the place and like my mind is going wild. So I'm gonna build a little app. You put in your campaign description, it spits out the standardized name for you, and then like it automatically inserts it, let's say, into our Airtable or like into our database for tracking. So that is like, there's no DevOps needed. It's just like a little tool that is like connected to ETL afterwards. Versus there's also some like wait lists. I see like wait lists being rampant. Marketing is like, oh, I don't want to
Hmm.
wait on my development team. Like, let me just build a wait list for like this new product announcement or feature launch or a landing page. There's no DevOps there either. There are some actual full-blown experiences that are starting to be built in companies on Lovable, and that's where the DevOps handoff, but I wouldn't say it's very rampant yet. We're starting to see just green shoots of it happening there and there. However, the other big use case is that solopreneurs starting to go into production and really going live with it. And at that point, yes, they're starting to most often get contractual and fractional help with additional DevOps and engineering, which is, by the way, like my dream is to also enable this fractional boom of
Mm.
people that are able to help out when needed, when these apps are growing without necessarily committing to full-time positions, because a lot of these apps don't need very large teams. They just need help here and there. So we're going to get into hiring
Yeah.
a marketplace eventually as well, because it's not something that widely exists, but so there is handoff in specific use cases. There are apps that are built completely end-to-end on Lovable, and we're dedicated to build a product to the end where only with much more enterprise-grade like applications that you would need additional resources.
Mm.
Everything else, let's say if you're building a B2C app, you should be able to do it end-to-end.
Awesome. Well, yeah, it sounds like a really exciting space. I did want to move on to just kind of like the funnel or growth metrics, as something that like I'm very curious about how that is changing too with AI native
Yeah.
products. When I think about PLG, it's like, oh, get to the aha moment, then figure out a habit moments, and then like how you retain, with retention curves over time, and like those are the things you're looking at. I'm wondering if you're seeing that as the same thing. Is it just accelerated? Like, what are there any metrics that you're looking at that are different from your past experience?
Yeah, so at Lovable, we still have the good old setup, aha, and habit loops. So although we redefined it when I joined, because at the beginning, the aha was to get couple of prompts under your belt, and I'm like, prompting does not equal aha. Prompting can lead to frustration. I see a question in the chat too, that like how you talk about, like, how do you think about your unhappy users? Well, unhappy users, like the more they prompt, actually the more they unhappy they become, because it doesn't get
Mm.
them the result. So we were a little bit misaligned in terms of, hey, prompting equals health, because it actually doesn't. It can be exact inverse. So we're pulling in a bunch of traffic data, and we defined our aha of not just, hey, prompt, 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 but prompt, publish, and then receive some traffic to your app that you've created, whether it's by you because it's your own personal tool, or whether it's by somebody else. It honestly doesn't matter, but start using it. And we're, by the way, going to be pulling in traffic information inside Lovable as well. So you'll see some analytics inside your apps sometime this summer,
Nice.
TBD on when the team is actually going to completely finish it up, because it's very fluid right now. But the piece here is that, yes, the frameworks of, you need to split up your activation, you need to work on your free to paid monetization, awareness of monetization, all of it still works. However, the piece here that is super interesting to me is that I would usually advocate that you need to allow AHA to happen in free mode if you have freemium. So Lovable obviously has freemium mode. You get 5 credits daily or 30 a month completely for free. But here, interestingly enough, the setup is so innovative, and your immediate value that you're starting to see is so quick that even after 5 prompts that you do, so each prompt equals a credit, you see the value, like you see where this can go. And that is quite different compared to setup moments that traditionally are available in SaaS. Like, let's just say, like, let's look at Amplitude. At Amplitude, setup moment is like, I go in, I need to connect the data source, I need to like do all of the taxonomy cleanup, I need to create my first chart. None of it, like, I cannot see what the end result is going to look like. It's a lot of heavy lifting that needs to happen, versus here, after first prompt, that immediate, the possibilities that can happen with it. You actually don't need to take it all the way to AHA. So like that time to value concept, because it starts to like shape what your AHA is going to look like, and pushes monetization to be a lot earlier than I would have otherwise been comfortable with, but it seems to be working quite well.
What do you mean by comfortable with? Like it's like it's too fast. It seems too good, or like
Yeah,
too
well,
fast at aha moment. Yeah.
I would just expect more people wanting to get to final aha before wanting to monetize. Yet here, people are willing to monetize well before traffic, so to speak, is received to their app, or like the first testing app is done. And that's because like the live preview is so functional, and like you see the updates happening immediately, that it's a no-brainer. Yeah, I'll get to traffic. I just need more
Yeah.
credits to build something that is meaningful. So it's as I said, I'm not a proponent to monetize on setup, but here in AI, where like you're starting to see value so quickly because setup is not annoying and it's not costly, it's actually delightful, the monetization can be triggered a lot faster.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Any other like surprising user behaviors that you've seen? That seems like something that's surprising to me, at least. Is like they just like have this concept in mind, and they're like, I know what I want and I want to monetize it now. I don't care about traffic, but like, is there anything else that I always like to ask that question if it's surprising things?
Yeah, I think the surprising piece to me has been how much people share about what they built.
Mm,
They they're they're proud of it, and it's wonderful to see people be able to accomplish that feeling on any tool, on any platform, to want to shout it off the rooftops, like, look what I've created, and getting community feedback on it. Like, I'm like constantly following Reddit threads and our Discord channel, and people like posting up like, look what I've look what I was able to create. What do you guys think? Like, any feedback on it, and the community jumps in. And then the second surprising thing that I've seen is that even though we're all purely self-serve, we do have couple salespeople now, so that's
mm,
already happening very quickly. We can talk about that. But
mm.
the piece here that is fascinating is how many people are out there themselves self-organizing to both create resources to help other people build, and how many people are asking, hey, will anybody come into my workspace and help me with some of the last tweaks? So people are self-organizing even outside of our control, and like providing almost like professional services to each other. And there's already even some agencies and like freelancers that are monetizing on it and being quite helpful. But it's I just love the community coming here together on its own so quickly, because it just really shows how strong of a product
Yeah.
market fit pool there is.
Man, my growth mind is like going like so many different places of like you have all this opportunity and like a team of 35. Like, how do you prioritize? That seems like just like such a hard thing to do because you could go so
Well,
many different directions.
I will actually just say that Lovable, the way that they're hiring for their team is quite different than any other company that I've worked with before. So first of all, the bar for hiring a full-time person is really, really high because the company changes every 3 weeks because we add like a
Mm,
$10 million in ARR every 3 to 4 weeks. So it's just like the change of like what your job scope is phenomenally fast. So full-time roles, like we're not even planning of adding that many by the end of the year.
wow.
However, contracting help is rampant. So we are hiring fractional, interim, like freelancers in all of the different areas that we need help with. So we're just finding the best of the best, seeing if they can willing to help us out for a couple of months. And then there's obviously consideration to full-time conversion if there's a really good fit for it. But full-time roles are very few and far in between, and it's very deliberate. And I actually love that because we're changing so quickly. We can pull in resources from the market as we need them, and people get to see what it's like to work in the company like that. And then there's obviously conversation to be extended to talk full-time, but it's mostly contract to hire help that we are operating under.
Yeah, very interesting. But I'm tempted to go down that route, but like I'm trying to bring it home with the rest of the agenda here. And I know someone asked about monetization and how AI native products monetize. There's like consumptions, there's agents doing jobs for you, there's like the traditional seat model. Like what model are you finding works best? Like how are you thinking about monetization?
Yeah, so monetization in AI has to be consumption based in some capacity. It cannot be tied to a user, it cannot be tied to a feature, just because each call to AI costs money. So like, unless we want to just be unprofitable, like like Uber for years and years and years, which is not our goal, we wanted to immediately align it with our usage base. However, it needs to be not just our usage base, it needs to be customer outcome as well. This is why we didn't do specifically an actual like token, which a lot of companies monetize because a
Mm-hmm.
token can mean very different things. We did it on a prompt, and some prompts are more expensive to us versus others, but we wanted to feel more conversational. I ask a question, and regardless of how many tokens are used in the back, we're still going to charge you only 1 credit for it. Although there's obviously diminishing returns at some point. If you load too much stuff in one prompt, AI is just not going to be able to handle it. So that's something that we need to get better at curbing as well. So we decided to blend it both usage, but at the same time create some sort of predictability. So we have tiers of credits that we sell. So you can buy 100 credits, 200 credits, uh, and so on and so on. By the way, we will be doing rollovers. So for those of you who have asked rollovers, it's in the works. So credits are not just going to continue expiring relentlessly. So that's going to happen very quickly as well. But so we're kind of like blending both usage as well as predictability. However, the future, I don't know what it's going to hold. Once we move to agentic flows and once we actually have more viable apps that are monetized on our platform, maybe we push monetization even further. Maybe we start doing some sort of rev share, especially if we're helping you grow that app as well. So future, I don't know, because at this point, it's all up in the air and everything is a possibility. The one thing I do know is that we won't be charging per user. That
Mm-hmm.
model just does not work for us. We won't be constraining on users, and we will do feature differentiation per plan to create different value on credits that you're using. So we will have multiple plans, but right now they're not going to be so flex. They're going to create some predictability for customers as well.
Yeah. Very fascinating. I know we're like kind of at time right now. Can I keep you for another 15 minutes?
Yes.
I know we get a lot of good questions too. So uh, the what you say about like the seat model going away, does that mean like do you see SaaS completely going away, or is SaaS, how much in trouble is SaaS as a business model? And like is this, I mean, this is clearly like changing monetization, go to market, all this stuff, like this new wave of AI products. So I know you wrote about that in your latest piece on Substack. So if you can share a little bit more about your take there.
Yeah, so maybe controversial, so feel free to disagree with me. But if we're if we're entering the world where you as an employee in the company is empowered to create anything or a lot of things that you would otherwise have to buy somewhere else. And you don't have to buy the bloat that comes along with like this platform, as opposed to like you can just create like your little thing. SaaS all of a sudden is not just competing with other companies, it's competing with its own customers. They can recreate that functionality. So on one hand, I think SaaS is in trouble because if you're in SaaS and you're still monetizing on fairly simple, straightforward, commoditized functionality, your customers can just go and start building it themselves. And it's never been easier than right now. So SaaS that still is like on the basic level of like, oh, this was cool when internet first came out and we're still charging money for it, which I'm not going to name any names on it, I do think are in trouble. So SaaS is going to have to move up in complexity, things that are very hard for customer to create themselves. It's like PLG on steroids. Instead of finding a company that has a delightful product, you can just go build your own. And it will be interesting space for us to see of how it will impact those. It's also going to create a lot more apps that are available out there. So right now we're kind of in centralization. Like everybody is buying each other out, and there's like these big monolith platforms that are being created. And what we're entering right now is the era of decentralization, where there's going to be millions of options available for anybody on any given use case. And people, instead of even shopping for them, are just going to continue creating them for their personal use on their own. And it's going to be cheaper than buying something out there. So we'll see how that's going to have to centralize at some point again, but we're entering the era of decentralization for sure, and like just infinite options that are available. But then on monetization models, I think every SaaS is going to have to simplify their interface. Instead of having a bunch of these bells and whistles and buttons and features, it's just going to have to be a prompt box. Like I want to change the setting and off it goes. So there's going to be a lot more like, and if you're not integrating and then you're still continuously doing these bells and whistles across the product, I think that just your experience is going to feel very outdated. So like example of it is like 10 years ago, every single car had a million buttons in the interface in order for you like to change air conditioning, to turn the music on. And now every single car just has a screen. Right. Because it's easier. And it's like it's becoming a standard to just have a screen. We're going in the same direction with SaaS, not a bunch of options, just a dialogue to chat. And if you have that chat dialogue, your cost basis changes because now you're making calls to AI, unless you're doing obviously in-house, which I don't know if we would be profitable or not. But the piece here is that per user pricing, I think, is just going to suffer quite a bit just because the cost is not nominal anymore per user. And one user can cost you thousands and thousands of dollars and the other user can cost you 10 cents. And it just doesn't make sense to anchor on per user pricing in that future.
Got it. Yeah. Fascinating. Fascinating. Okay. There's a couple audience questions. So I'm going to try and land my last question here for myself, and then we can turn to audience questions for a couple for the last remaining minutes here. And this was also an audience question that I saw come through, which is I saw that you mentioned, that some people are pulling you on the enterprise side of things. They're seeing like, you have a sales team, and there's clearly like sales use cases. They're like, I want to buy this for my company. So can you tell us about like how you know when it's time for someone who's using Lovable or who's using one of these AI native products to like actually bring in sales and have like a larger contract, or maybe navigate like security concerns and stuff like that? Like, how do you know when it's time to layer in that sales PLS motion, product-led sales type motion?
Yeah. So I'll just tell how we decided on Lovable. We just saw so we put in the team before I joined, put in just a sales form on the side. Like if you want to talk to us, if you want to buy more,
raise your
off
hand,
you go.
Yeah.
Raise your hand. Yeah, we call it hand raisers actually. And that queue just started growing out of this world. And we're like, there's such a heavy pull here that like market is pulling us to say, hey, we want to buy, that it was just a no-brainer, like to say, okay, we have one person that started closing. They got completely overwhelmed. If you've ever submitted a sales form to us, I'm so sorry if we haven't gotten back to you, because you and the sea of other people, we're trying to fix problems as soon as possible. But like, yes, I'm like getting pinged every single day. Like, you're not responding to us. I'm like, I'm sorry. But it's you have to feel that organic pull. Otherwise, I think investment in PLS and sales is just it shouldn't be there. The moment you start feeling that organic pull, that's when you lean all in. So we felt that pull. We had our sales person. They started to be very successful and very productive. We brought in a couple more people in order to deal with the queue. We're not even doing any true product-led sales yet. It's just hand raisers that are going on, and we just need to address that before we start pushing and start prospecting against our self-serve user base. And then we started to have like a line item in our product roadmap of all of the enterprise needs. So we're going to be releasing design templates. We're going to be making SSO. We're going to be doing like creating audits, compliances. So all of that came after we felt the pull. So the big difference here is like, don't create these enterprise features expecting that the market will come and see it. Market will come if they need it, and then you can follow it up with all of the features. In the meantime, just focus on user adoption and and just like user delight as much as possible.
Yeah, I remember seeing that at retail where it's like they're just telling you like I need the security features and kind of like that guides your enterprise plan essentially. I feel like that's a good way to do it if you have the fortune to do that.
Right.
Okay, so turning to audience questions, I'm getting a ton, or I'm seeing a ton around churn, and especially like for churn, the churn question for these like AI native companies that are exploding like Lovable. So can you talk a little about like the churn that you see, or like behaviors that are maybe like, the anti-behavior that you're not like, trying to achieve with like your user acquisition?
Yeah, so there's a couple. So in terms of churn metrics as a whole, so as I said, we're almost all of our revenue, we're starting to pick up managed sales revenue for sure, but almost all of our revenue is self-serve. We're doing profiling at the beginning to make sure that we know like who's our ICP, who's not our ICP. Within our ICP, our churn is good. It's solid. There's like I don't see like big red errors there saying like, oh my gosh, something is completely wrong. Yes, there's a lot of people that are coming in that are just trying out. Maybe they buy a plan for 1 month and they're like, this is cool, but I don't have time for this, or I don't have like a specific use case for it. So they're more of explorers. And that's totally fine. That's going to happen with every single company. To me, the focus is like looking at that churn from ICP perspective. And if an ICP were good, then I think we're good. And that's not the case for every single AI company out there. I completely agree. But in Lovable's case, it's a highly habitual product because once you build, then you need to maintain it, then you need to continue growing it. I'm going to add additional features to it as your use case complexity continues to agree. And even if you're not editing it whatsoever, you're going to continue using it. So you're going to continue needing to be on Lovable. So from that perspective, it's a matter of, are you building a habitual product? So is there an end after that initial aha moment, or is that aha highly episodic and once in a life, like once a year or once every 2 years or something like that? So a lot of these AI companies will have churn issues. I don't see it at Lovable, but at the same time, we're keeping really close eye on it. And to me, any churn at the end of the day is either poor product market fit on retention. So you just don't have retention baked into your product market fit. You're not a retentive product, or your activation is incorrect. And we're right now heavily focused on improving our activation in order to make sure that people get to that habitual moment as fast as possible.
Yeah. I know from like personal experience, like building an AI generated tool. Shout out plagent.ai if anyone wants to check it out. But what I've found is like since we built that, just myself and a web developer, super fast in like 2 weeks. We're now looking at everything on the marketing experiment side through that lens, and it's like, oh, we can do this again for other things. And it just actually, I was thinking, that would be a one-time use case, and we wouldn't use AI for building a tool anymore. And now I'm just like, there's so much there, and like thinking through that lens, I can see that other users kind of like see the value and just apply it and expand over time. So can you talk about like what about expansion metrics? Like, do you see people like use the product, grok it, and then just like the retention and usage like kind of goes up, and maybe that's like your core ICP?
Yeah, so the usage right now for us is measured as the prompts that you're doing with the product, which again, we're going to be shifting it more to an actual usage of the app that you've built as we get all of that information into our systems. However, I would say that, first of all, if you're going to use tools like Lovable, you should go, I would recommend you for now, until we release our agentic flow, go to ChatGPT, say, hey, I'm working on
Mm,
Lovable. Here's what I want to build. Give me a right prompt, just so you can utilize your prompt credits correctly. Again, we're going to build agentic flows to solve all of that, but that is the quickest shortcut for you to not feel like you're wasting credits. But then at the same time, it's the continuous iteration and building that ends up happening. And we're leaning into teams as well very heavily to make sure that everybody on the team has access to the tools like that and build it. So again, there's some occasional use cases. Of course, they're going to see churn. It's okay. People need to explore and people need to see what's possible. But we're seeing very strong pool of a highly habitual use cases with people even surprised, like you, of the habits that they're starting to create around the tools and the possibilities that they can use. So that is the angle that we're leaning into.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Makes a ton of sense. Okay, I was trying to sift through some of the audience questions. I don't know if you saw any that stood out to you. There's one that stood out to me that I'll ask kind of selfishly, and then I don't know if we can maybe end it there. But there's one from David that says, "What are the top signals you look for when identifying power users to convert to like enterprise contracts?"
Yeah, so currently we're not prospecting our self-serve user base at all, just
It's all
because
hand raise.
we're because we're so behind in our sales queue. We don't want to prospect and ask you to get in touch with our sales and then like have you wait 2 weeks. That's like terrible user experience. So for now, we're just letting people on their own mature and do a hand raising motion, and then we addressing them. But in the future, we will be doing that. The way that we're going to address it, which is my playbook of how I address it in every company that is out there, is you look at the existing pool of hand raisers that have converted to contracts, or at least reach some sort of S2 stage of the pipeline. And then you start looking across your entire self-serve user base to say who looks like a hand raiser, smells like a hand raiser, acts like this hand raiser, across both behaviors that they're doing in product, across the usage metrics, across any other signals that you can put in. And those are your initial product qualified accounts that we would be starting to prospect against after we catch up with our hand raising queue. So that's going to happen towards probably the next couple of months, or maybe towards the end of the year when we're ready for it, because we need to be sure that we provide amazing user experience once we do that. Because if we push you to hand raise and then we don't get back to you within 15
Yeah.
minutes, then we just wasted that interaction. And I don't want to go there until we're ready to catch it on the other side.
Cool. Last one that I'm curious about is Mark asks, what are some interesting growth experience that you've done at Lovable that you weren't able to do at other companies? I don't know if that's putting you on the spot too much, but I feel like that's a good
No,
one.
so I'm actually not doing, I don't feel like I'm doing anything innovative yet. I'm just like putting the building blocks in place. We just launched a referral program, which I'm very excited about. We're moving collaboration into free. Yeah, I always like preach, like you can't gate collaboration, Lovable gates collaboration. We're going to fix that. That's happening very soon. So I feel like I'm just putting everything that I've ever talked about or I've ever wanted to do at any other company that's just been like very cumbersome and very long. And here it's like, oh, a month in, boom, 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 all of this is out. So I'm not doing anything innovative yet. I'm only a month on the job, and the month on the job, it's not to me like the way that I think about starting in any given company. It's not going taking big bets that I have never done before. It's A, understand what is already working so I can continue supporting that, and then B, putting my best practices in place that I have really high confidence in succeeding in place. So like that's the stage that I'm in right now. And then C, I'm going to go and try to innovate on top of it, but I'm not quite there yet.
Awesome. All right. Well, that does it. Elena, you've been super generous with your time. I'm going to pull up a slide so we can plug where people can find you. So I'll plug it myself. Like this is one of the best Substacks you'll see out there. If you're not already subscribed to Elena's newsletter and blog, Substack, whatever you want to call it, definitely do that. And then there's also some really cool stuff happening this weekend, I think, with Lovable. So maybe
Yes.
Elena, you can share.
I want to give you all a heads up. I'm not sure if we already posted it on social or not, but this weekend, unlimited Lovable, free for everybody. So starting on Saturday, and it's going to be 8 a.m. EET. So it's going to be 8, what is it? I'm not good at converting times. 8 a.m. CT. everything is free, however much you want to use. There's going to be some throttling for free users in case we get too much volume, but for paid users, your credits don't count. You can use unlimited. And what we're doing is an AI model showdown. So you're going to be able to use Anthropic, you're going to be able to use OpenAI, and you're going to be able to use Google, and you're going to be able to compare them all three. You can be able to toggle between them and see what builds better. And then we have amazing prizes and tens of thousands of dollars to people that write best comparisons across those models. So if you want to explore Lovable, and if you are price sensitive and don't want to pay, and especially if you want to see which models in AI perform the best, it's sponsored by all of those three big companies, and everything is going to be free for you for Lovable. So block your calendar, spend a couple of hours. You'll be incredibly impressed at what you'll be able to achieve, and especially do the toggle, because then you can actually see, is Google better than OpenAI or is OpenAI better than Anthropic? So you'll be able to answer it for yourself.
Very nice. I got some people very excited about this in the chat, so that's great. And Elena, I'll let you go. We still have another like 15 minutes. I'm going to go through some demo stuff, but really appreciate your time and thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you.
Elena. Okay, so I'm already sharing my screen. I did want to kind of go through for the audience that's here, go through a few things around, some of the questions we saw was like, how do I identify my ICP, or like, what are some ways to identify different kind of use cases that you would like bring to doing like a product-led sales motion, and using Common Room as a way to do that. So I wanted to just give like a quick primer on what Common Room does, and then also kind of like go through some demo of like what's possible. So real quick here for the audience who's not familiar with Common Room, what we do is we pull in, we're a platform for go-to-market pipe gen. The thing we do really well is a couple things. We pull in signal from all sorts of places, all sorts of digital breadcrumbs, from your product data to website visits to intent data, and then also have an agent that'll go fetch custom buying signals and pull it into our platform. The other thing we do, which is a really critical component that often goes unthought of or unspoken, is the ability to take all these signals, unify them into a single user profile, and then enrich them so you know what company or what account or what activity and all that stuff is happening across all these different touch points into a single unified user profile, and then also at the account, rolled up into the account level. And so when you combine these two things, that allows you to do those types of actions on the go-to-market side, where you're building these kind of what we call micro campaigns to say like, oh, tell me any product user who's visiting our terms of service page, and I'm going to flag that to my sales team, or my customer success team, or whatever team, and then they're going to take action within Common Room itself. So we're building like this whole platform of execution, from start of a signal capture to executing and running those signals to generate pipeline and generate revenue for the companies that work with Common Room. And then we also are layering on the ability for AI and agents to work on top of that. Let's call it like a foundational data layer. So if you think about this as your foundational data, then you can do all sorts of really interesting things with AI, where you're asking AI to find the best leads for you to reach out to. You're asking AI to generate a outbound message based on all the activity of a certain user. And so that's kind of what I wanted to demo right now, and specifically through the lens of this like AI native kind of use cases, or somewhat PLG use cases. And so I'm going to jump into this Notion doc that I created and go through these like few examples here. I'm going to blow this up so people can see it. Okay, so there's a few different like these three use cases are things that I see come up time and time again for PLG and these AI native companies that are trying to like find who are the best, their ICP, are trying to activate revenue. So one of them is one example is a company like, say, like Grammarly, or I'm trying to think of like, or maybe like Asana. They have like lots of different people signing up for their product. Maybe Lovable is a good example, where you have like multiple people within different fractions of the company signing up for the product. So they're creating multiple workspaces. And so if you can identify who, which of those companies have, one person on a paid plan, one person on and like a bunch of other people on a free plan, that's a really strong signal oftentimes that like, oh, you should aggregate and consolidate all this within like the security team or within the financial department. And that's a good person to reach out to say like, hey, did you know that your company is using workspaces from our product across like all these different surface area? Like, let's combine that into one consolidated plan or make the security posture tightened or whatever. So to do that in Common Room, you can see here that there's 257 organizations here. We have total workspaces because we're pulling in product data and having this own like workspace as a custom object within Common Room. So you can see like within any of these accounts here, how many users they have within that have different workspaces. So it's in demo mode. So these are like real companies that are disguised. I'm going to click on this one. Actually, I don't know if this even needs to be demo mode, but that's okay. And you can see here that within this company, we're looking at, it's actually Netscope, that within Netscope, there are a bunch of people on the free plan. And if I wanted to find people, like to find the account on the paid plan, I can simply just add in a filter for this paid workspace. And I can type paid workspace here. Let's see here. Oh, it's actually on room name. Let's see here, add filter. And then how do I guess count workspace, editors and workspace. Sorry, 1 second here. I'm struggling. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Business monthly. So this workspace, I can click into here and see that they're on the paid plan, and then maybe like maybe I want to find the right person within Netscope who is the person to reach out to like say like, hey, did you know that there's 2 people on this paid plan, but you have a ton of accounts on the free plan, and like that seems like something that you might want to look into, like adding more people to your free plan because there's clearly value out of this product here. And so from here as a rep, I can say like, okay, let's go into this account and I can find, who's interacting, who's active within these different workspaces. And maybe I can do like a filter here for title equals security or something like that, or maybe finance. And if there's not anyone on the finance side or anyone on the security side, I can also find those right people within Common Room. So let's do security here. Okay, we have security people found, and so I can click on to any one of these people, and from here, if I'm a rep, I can see like, oh, what's the activity that this person is familiar with using our product. I can draft an AI message that I can send to that person using all of the data that we're capturing on that's aggregated at that user level. And then if I need to prospect and find someone else to reach out to, I can also, find the right person who's maybe not involved in that workspace. So fumbling a little bit over like the demo stuff here, but I think that one we can check off. The other really great use case for Common Room is, especially for these AI native companies that are getting like tons and tons of volume on personal email signups, is that because we can identify that person and enrich their user record with where they work, and all these other different attributes using our waterfall enrichment, you can then start to identify people who are signing up with Gmail accounts or Yahoo account or something like that, who actually work at an account within your ICP. And so you can see here that there are 379,000 people in this demo environment. And if I wanted to apply filters to narrow down to my ICP, I can easily do that. So we can add contact tags for economic buyers or an ideal persona. I can add another filter here for company size. Is at least 50 people, and then maybe we want to add something like a like capital raised is at least 5 million or something like that. And then so here is our ICP. Like these are the best fit accounts, and also like we've tagged these people that are economic buyers or in our ICP. So there's 2,000 people here, but we maybe want to see like, okay, which one of these people signed up with Gmail? So to do that, I have to type in gmail.com up here, and this will show us those people who have signed up with a personal account who we've also been able to enrich. And if I click on, I think any one of these people here, you'll see like, oh, this is this person's job history because we have identified this person who signed up with a personal account. We know where they work. We know their title right now. We're enriching all this information, and this is fake email address, but you can see that there is a Gmail email address attached to this person. And so this is maybe like a sign up that's in your ICP that's hidden through a personal like hobbyist type of use case. So I'll check that one off. And then the very last thing I wanted to show is not only that you can look at product data to identify, the right types of accounts and people to reach out to, but you can layer on these other signals that I was showing here, like website visits or, job changes, things like that. And so we call this signal stacking. And so one really great use case for that is to see who's active in your product and then who's also visiting like a docs page, for example. So I'm going to click on this. It's already built. The filter's already built for me. If you wanted to like mix and match, you could add more filters like this based on different types of signals. But you can see here that this is looking at that same ICP, ideal persona and economic buyers. It's anyone who's visited the docs page in the last 28 days. And then they're also an active product user. They have more than 2 days active in the product. And then they're also on a free plan. So these are people who may be good candidates for doing like an upsell to, because they're like trying to figure out a use case. They're in your ICP and they're active product users and they're visiting your docs page. And so I can click on any one of these people again. It's going to tell me all of their information about like what activity they've interacted with on our product, on our website, on social, all the signals unified to the single user profile. And then again, we can like draft a message to them using our AI agent that's going to take all that information via prompting and then just generate a message that is like a warm touch that you could like send to that person. So I'll check that off the box, check that box as well. We have 4 minutes. I can jump to questions.